Lawyers of Reddit, what's your best, most badass I rest my case moment? I was on the losing end of this one. I was representing a pro bono defendant who was attempting to regain custody of her children. The family division attorney was laying out his case to the judge for why my client wasn't ready, and his final point was that my client had refused emotional counseling to avoid violent fits of rage that she inflicted on her children. On cue, my client jumps up screaming, "Fluff you, judge lady! You were stupid! Fluff you for taking my kids, you fluffing!" I just caught the opposing attorney's smirk of satisfaction as I got up to usher my client out of the courtroom. When I was in law school, I had to argue a case for an exam. I was the last in my class to go, so there wasn't anyone arguing against me. I opened with a motion to dismiss since opposing had failed to show. The judge grading me chuckled and said, "Touché, counsel." I still had to go forward, but we got off on the right foot and I ended up with an A. Genius! Not a case-winning moment, but a motion-winning one for sure. Think of cases like a big conflict with motion hearings as little conflicts. Opposing attorney was insisting that Rule A meant they could do X. I tried multiple times to point out Rule A literally did not say that. During the hearing, the judge reached behind them, grabbed their rules of civil procedure, basically a dictionary of rules, placed it in front of the other attorney and said, "Show me where Rule A says X." Other attorney did not take the hint, read rules out loud for a brutal 5 minutes, and gave the book back. I said, "Judge, I have nothing to add." It was pretty fun. I was prosecuting some kid. He had an antisocial behavior order, which meant that he was not supposed to go to a certain street. He had pleaded not guilty on the basis that he had not been there. I opened my cross-examination by holding up a map and pointing at the street. I said to him, "You went here, didn't you?" He said, "Yes." In England, we don't say I rest my case. Instead, I looked up at the bench, said, "No further questions," and sat down. It might not seem badass, but I got the defendant to admit the offense with one question. That never happens. Corporate lawyer, so I don't have cases to rest. But once opposing counsel was forcefully insisting that it was ridiculous for me to expect a certain provision in a contract we were negotiating, and I pointed out that this provision was standard in his own firm's contract forms, as I knew from several prior transactions I'd worked on across from them. Pretty exciting stuff. He took it in stride and said, jokingly, "Well, of course it's fine when we ask for it." Opposing counsel decided that I had coached my witness and gave him lines to repeat that he was lying. Short version is that he asked the witness if he spoke to me before he testified. Witness said he had. Attorney looked like he thought he had me. Attorney asked the witness what I told him, what instructions I gave him. Witness looked him dead in the eye and said, "First thing he told me was to tell the truth no matter what. He said the lawyer is never the one who goes to jail, that he isn't going to jail for me, and if I lie, I'm on my own." Attorney looked like someone took the air out of him. Everyone in the courtroom simultaneously looked at me. Only time I've smirked or laughed in court. I wanted to put my feet up on the table like I was Vincent LaGuardia Gambini, hands behind my head, and say, "I'm done with this guy." Defendant in a bench trial for a speeding ticket said he couldn't possibly go as fast as the officer clocked him. He knew this because he videotaped himself accelerating from a full stop to the location of where the officer sat. His experiment showed his vehicle could only get to 55 miles per hour and not the 67 miles per hour he was clocked at. The ADA then moved to have another speeding ticket issued because the actual posted speed limit was 50 miles per hour. 5 miles per hour over is probably just a fine and a few points. 17 over is possibly reckless driving, depending on the officer's discretion. I'd take that. Guy in a divorce case transferred money to the Equity Preservation Corporation. I looked at their corporate filing. There were only 2 shareholders. Knowing who they were, I asked on cross-examination. He denied knowing them. I then asked about them by name. He admitted they were his parents. Was the bank of mom and dad the old name for this corporation? Well, hello, son. This is the bank of your mom and dad. IP lawyer. Deep in a set of terms and conditions on a website, and our client's details, name and contact details were listed. So it is very evident that they just copy-pasted our client's legal terms and conditions and missed a couple of details they needed to change. I was handed the matter, did a quick Control F for client details, and it was an open and shut case. Not really that impressive, but saved me hours of time going through each term one after the other, noting exact similarities for a letter of demand. Well, thank God for modern computing conventions. I saw another thread asking about this a while ago, and someone in there linked to this, which I actually really liked. Probably the original poster of the comment, user Gary Carroll. I remember that story! Man, that was a blast to read the first time and now the second time as well. Thanks for bringing it up again. The Ace Attorney here. A parrot testified once and helped defend my client and convict the right person. This guy knows his bird law. Oh man. A third party my company hired is being sued for violating national do not call laws. We received a document third party wanted to settle with customer. Our lawyer. This document doesn't name us, so tell them it's fine to sign. If they want to settle 100% on their own, they can go for it. Me? IANAL, but from what I read, we are vaguely mentioned in sentence 3, and then by name in sentence 5, 7, 13, 17, 21. Our lawyer. Oh, right. Force them not to sign it as we have to figure this out on our side. These are the people who make 5 times what I make and charge $800 an hour to not even read the first paragraph of the settlement! Man, I'm really sorry, but that sounds horrible. My client and his wife were woken up one night because people were trying to break into his house. He fired 2 warning shots as his wife called 911. The neighbor also called 911. When the police got the neighbor's call that there were shots fired, the police sergeant radioed the other officers and said, "He's going to jail tonight," referring to my client. So obviously, even with signs of someone trying to break in and his wife calling 911 for help, the officers arrest my client for endangering his wife by shooting inside the house. He was nowhere near her. It gets to a jury trial and I start to go off on the police sergeant about why she would say that before an investigation and before she even had any idea what happened. The sergeant had no idea how to respond and literally just sat there staring at me for a solid 2 minutes before saying anything. Even the bailiffs were audibly laughing. As someone taking my former employer to an employment tribunal, one of the parts they denied was the base roster of days based at 724 minutes. My barrister said, "Well, why do all your rosters and pay records have that as a base day?" They denied it. My barrister turned to their legal guy and said, "So these papers from HR that show all pay records for my grade are based on a 7-hour, 24-minute day?" He said, "Yes, they do." Edit. 7 of 24 paid and booked 8-hour days. Whoa. That is just crazy. So I'm fighting a DWI case and the cop is a lying liar who is telling big lies about what signs he saw on that field sobriety test that my client was allegedly intoxicated. The state had not moved expeditiously enough to have a copy of all the evidence in the case. So we got him up on the stand talking all about how my clients looked on the horizontal gaze nystagmus eye test, then buried him with his own body camera footage which he thought had been destroyed. It wasn't. The judge, the newly elected Democrat in Texas, made findings on the record that the police officer had intentionally lied and misrepresented the truth. The state still tried to fight the case, but it came out the right way. I'm really glad it did. I was trying a criminal sexual conduct case. My client was a stepfather of a 13-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy. Allegedly, my client fingered her on the living room couch while the 8-year-old boy was in the room with them watching TV. Mum was in a rehab facility for drug and alcohol abuse. My theory of the case was that the girl made the case up because my client refused to pay for modeling classes for the girl. The boy testified and said he saw the criminal act from where he was sitting on a recliner. On cross-examination, I asked how he could see what happened since the lights were low at night time, and my client, who is 6 foot tall and weighs 200 pounds, was in between them. He said that his story was what he was told to say by the sister and the prosecutor's victim coordinator. The prosecutor rested her case. I shut up and sat down. I presented no defense and it took the jury 3 minutes to find him not guilty. I witnessed this sitting in court. It was a drug case and there was some discussion between the prosecutor, defense attorney, and the judge about the quantity. Judge says something like, "Right, but that's in ounces. How many grams is that?" Prosecutor and defense attorney say that they don't know. Judge says, "I mean, we can figure it out. How many grams are in an ounce?" Prosecutor and defense attorney still shrug like, "Don't know." All of a sudden, the defendant pipes up, 28.3. Oh, you gotta use conversion maths. Brilliant. My brother-in-law is a DA. He was attacked during sentencing by a child molester. The pedo got his hand chains around his neck and was choking him. My brother-in-law fought until the deputy pulled him off and then continued with his recommendations like it didn't happen. We all heard about it on the news later. When we asked him about it, it was no big deal. I'll take the bruising if it keeps him away from the kids longer. My brother-in-law had bruising to his neck and throat, and his voice was messed up for about a week. Hats off to you, mate, that is amazing. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Originals for more videos like this. Oh, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on all our videos. We upload a video each day, so stay tuned.